7 days had passed since the attack on the peaceful alien world called Alindra. What started as a quiet night turned into a nightmare when raiders from the Void Sector arrived without warning. They burned homes, destroyed farms, and captured anyone who tried to run families hid in caves and ruins, praying someone somewhere would hear their cries for help. The Alindrans were not a strong species. They were gentle inventors and farmers with soft voices and peaceful hearts. War was not in their blood. They had only one hope: their small communication tower on the cliffside. Every hour they sent messages into space, but no one responded. The galactic empires nearby ignored them. Alindra was too small, too weak, too unimportant. The leaders gathered in the council hall, a broken building with smoke still rising around it. The oldest elder spoke with sadness in his voice. "No one will come for us, we are alone," children cried. Mothers held them tight. Warriors, only 15 in number, stood like statues, trying not to show fear. They pointed toward the sky and said the raiders will return, and when they come back this time, they will take everything. Hope was dying like a fading fire. On the morning of the 7th day, something changed. A young girl named Lyra ran across the village, shouting for everyone to look. The communication tower had picked up a signal, a reply. The people rushed to the cliff, unable to believe their eyes. A message blinked on the old, cracked screen. Then the screen spoke in a deep, strange voice none of them had heard before. "Hold on, we are coming." The crowd froze. Some felt relief. Some felt fear. The elders looked at each other with confused eyes. Who had answered? What kind of voice was that? A whisper rose from the crowd. "It sounds human." The Alindrans fell silent. Humans were myths in their culture. Old stories told by travelers. Stories about a distant planet so dangerous that everything living on it had to be strong to survive a death world, a place filled with giant storms. Deadly animals, mountains that spat fire, and oceans that swallowed ships whole. If the stories were true, humans were not normal beings. They were fighters, shaped by a world that tried to kill them every day. Some said humans were extinct. Some said they never existed. Some believed they were shadows or monsters wearing the shape of a person. The elder Sporin whispered, "If humans are real, why would they come for us? We are strangers. We have nothing to offer, no treasure, no weapons, no power." No one could answer. They only watched the sky in fear and hope, mixing together. Hours passed. The wind grew colder. The sky grew darker. Then something impossible happened. A tear opened in the clouds, a glowing line cut across the sky like a burning wound. The Alindrans screamed and hid behind rocks, thinking the raiders had returned with a new weapon. But the shape falling from the sky was different, silent, fast, controlled. It moved like a star, diving from heaven. A giant metal dropship roared through the clouds, leaving fire in its wake. Then another, dozens of them, each one shining like a burning meteor. The villagers watched with shaking hands and pounding hearts. The dropships crashed into the ground but did not explode. They opened steam, hissed out, metal shifted, and then the figures stepped out. Tall, armored, cold-faced, their eyes sharp like hunters, their movements calm like beings who felt no fear at all. The Alindrans gasped. These were not monsters, not gods, not myths. They looked like simple people, but they moved with deadly confidence, like they had come from a world far more dangerous than any raider fleet. The ground was still shaking when the humans walked out of the burning dropships, their heavy boots pressed into the soft soil of Alindra. And every alien who watched from behind the rocks felt the same strange fear. These were not giant beasts or creatures from nightmares. They were something much worse. They were calm. The survivors of the first attack peeked out from behind ruined walls. They expected humans to roar or threaten or boast, but the humans said nothing. They simply looked around, studying every broken house, every collapsed roof, and every trail of smoke rising in the distance. Their eyes were sharp like blades and frozen like winter. They looked like warriors who carried whole lifetimes of battles inside their minds. The Alindran elder Leora approached slowly. Her hand shook as she held a small light crystal to show she meant peace. The smallest human, a medic, stepped toward her. His armor was scratched and burned, but he moved as if he felt no pain. Leora stepped back, thinking he would hurt her. Instead, he knelt down. The medic scanned the little Elendran child hiding behind Leora. The child had been hit by a shockwave earlier and could not breathe well. The medic removed a glowing device from his arm and placed it against the child. The device hummed softly. The child gasped and then breathed clearly, like nothing had happened. Leora stared in disbelief. The humans were not monsters, they were not myths, they were not nightmares, they were survivors of a death world. They understood pain better than anyone before. The Elendrans could speak. A loud siren echoed across the valley. The raiders had returned. Their ships screamed through the clouds, leaving long trails of fire behind. The villagers panicked. Some ran, some hid, some cried. The raiders came back with more force than before. They had seen the human dropships. They believed new prey had arrived. The human commander stepped forward. He lifted his blade, which glowed faint blue. It was not a ceremonial weapon. It was something built for war. He turned toward his squad, and they nodded without needing orders. The aliens watched in fear as the humans moved toward the battlefield. The raiders had 50 soldiers for every one human. The Elendrans whispered that humans would never survive this. They whispered that humans had made a mistake answering their call. But the humans smiled. The raiders landed and roared as they charged forward. Their armor was thick, their claws sharp, their tech advanced. Their numbers overwhelming. The Elendrans covered their ears, ready to hear the screams of humans. Instead, they heard something else. A roar from the humans. Not a roar of fear, a roar of challenge, the type of sound only a species raised on a death world could make. The humans charged forward faster than anyone expected. Their movements sharp, their reactions too fast for the raiders to track. The first humans slammed into 3 raiders at once, throwing them back as if they weighed nothing. The second human spun around a plasma blade swing and struck with a punch that broke the raider's armor. The third leaped onto a raider vehicle, flipping it over with pure strength. The Elendrans stared in disbelief. Humans were not fighting like trained soldiers. They were fighting like creatures who had survived storms, volcanoes, beasts, lightning, giant predators. And impossible dangers on their home world Earth had shaped them into something the galaxy could never understand. The humans were not monsters. They were the reason monsters learned fear. The raiders tried to retreat back to their ships, but the humans did not let them. Every time a raider attacked, the humans became faster. Every time a raider hit them, the humans grew more focused. It was as if pain sharpened their instincts within minutes. The battlefield was silent, except for the heavy breathing of the humans. They stood surrounded by defeated raiders. The Elendrans did not know whether to clap or hide. Finally, the elder Leora walked toward the human commander. She looked up at him with wide, trembling eyes and asked the question on everyone's mind, "What are you?" The human turned toward her, his armor dripping with dust and ash. His face calm as if nothing had happened, his voice low and steady. "We are from Earth. We do not run from monsters. We become the nightmare monsters fear." The Elendrans felt their hearts tighten. The humans were here not for glory, but because someone cried for help, and humans were the one species in the galaxy who understood what it meant to have no one, and now they had come for Elendra. The sun had barely risen when the ground began to shake again. The Elendrans froze in fear, because they already knew this kind of vibration. It was not footsteps, it was not ships landing, it was something far worse. The raiders had summoned their Titan. The Titan was a walking fortress, a giant machine, taller than the highest mountain on Elendra. Its legs crushed forests, its arms carried cannons the size of houses. Its eyes glowed red like burning stars. Wherever it walked, the sky turned dark, and the wind carried the smell of death. The villagers screamed and begged the humans to run. They shouted that nothing in the galaxy could fight a Titan. They said that the Titan had destroyed full armies before, and no one survived. Its armor was unbreakable, its power endless, but the humans did not run. The human commander stepped forward slowly. He looked at the massive Titan, then he smiled. It was not a cruel smile. It was a smile of someone who finally found a challenge. The Elendrans whispered in terror, "Are humans insane?" The humans began planting metal rods in the ground around the village. The aliens had never seen such devices. Lightning symbols glowed along their surface. The rods hummed as if they were alive. The villagers backed away, unsure. If the humans were preparing some last attempt of magic or simply losing their minds, the Titan took another step, and the ground cracked open. The humans did not move. The rods glowed brighter. The Elendrans cried out, telling the humans to run, that it was too late, that no shield, no weapon, no army had ever stopped a Titan. Then the Titan fired. A giant beam of energy shot out from its cannon, scorching the sky. The heat was so intense that trees turned to ash. Instantly, the beam rushed toward the humans and the village, ready to erase everything. The humans activated the rods. A huge, shimmering shield exploded outward like a bubble of silver light. The Titan beam hit the shield and bent sideways, sending energy shooting into the clouds. The Elendrans screamed, not in fear this time, but in disbelief. The Titan beam had been stopped. The Titan roared, shaking mountains. The humans charged forward. They ran straight at the Titan, climbing over burning rocks, dodging falling debris. Their movements were fast, sharper than lightning. They moved like warriors who had spent their whole lives fighting against forces far stronger than themselves. One human leaped onto the Titan leg, gripping onto metal that should have burned skin, but he held tight. Another human used a glowing tool to cut through a joint, sending sparks. Raining down, the Titan stumbled confused. The Elendrans watched with wide eyes. No one had ever climbed a Titan, no one had ever touched its armor, no one had ever fought it directly, but humans were not like anyone else. The Titan tried to shake them off, swinging its arms and firing missiles into the valley, but the humans kept climbing higher. Their bodies moved with impossible balance, as if Earth itself had trained them to survive chaos. The Titan turned its head, lowering its giant cannon toward the humans. Ready to erase them completely, the Elendrans covered their faces, unable to watch. Single human aimed a small handheld device at the cannon. He pressed the trigger. A thin beam of blue light shot out and hit the Titan armor. It made a cracking sound so loud the mountains echoed. The Titan, the Elendrans gasped. They could not believe their eyes. The humans had broken the unbreakable, panicked. Its systems glitched, its legs trembled. It tried to retreat, but the humans moved faster, climbing onto its back. The commander reached the top of the Titan, finding the metal hatch that led inside with his bare hands. He pulled the hatch open. Inside the Titan cockpit, the raider pilot screamed and fired every weapon he had, but the commander walked forward without fear. His steps were steady, his face calm, his eyes cold like a warrior who had already accepted every danger life could give. He lifted his blade and whispered one quiet line that the pilot would never forget: wrong planet to attack. With one strike, he destroyed the Titan core. The machine roared like a dying beast and collapsed into the valley, shaking the world as it fell. The Elendrans stared at the fallen Titan. Their fear slowly turned into something new, something powerful: respect. Humans had fought something that no one else in the galaxy dared to face, and they won. The fallen Titan still lay in the valley like a dead mountain, smoke rising from its broken core. The Elendrans stood around it, trembling because they could not understand how humans had done the impossible. The villagers whispered stories saying that the humans had either used forbidden magic or some ancient lost power. But the truth was far simpler. Humans were shaped by a world that never stopped testing them. The human squad gathered near the Titan remains one of the statues. A man named Rylan limped forward. His armor was cracked and a long cut ran across his arm. The Elendrans gasped, thinking he would collapse. The wound looked deep and painful, far beyond what any Elendran warrior could endure, but Rylan only laughed softly. He pulled off a piece of his broken armor and tightened the band around his bleeding arm. His hands did not shake. His breath did not falter. He acted like pain was a normal part of living, not something to fear. The Elendrans stared in confusion. They had never seen anyone treat injury like an inconvenience. The elder Leora stepped closer and asked a quiet question: "How can you still stand?" Rylan looked at her with calm eyes and answered, "Because humans grow stronger when the world tries to break them. Pain teaches us to survive. Pain is our oldest teacher." Before Leora could respond, the sky shook again. The raiders were not finished. They had lost the Titan, but they wanted revenge. They sent in 3 waves of heavy armored troop ships hovering close to the ground, ready to strike. The villagers cried out in fear, thinking the humans were too injured, too tired, too few to fight again. The human commander, however, stood straight, as if the new threat excited him. He raised his blade and shouted a single command that echoed through the valley. Stand. Ready, the humans formed a line, their energy shields flickered alive. Their armor tightened around their bodies. Their breathing steadied, they stepped forward, as if the new battle was nothing more than another step in their journey. The raiders charged first. Their heavy boots crushed the burned grass. Their energy weapons lit the air in bright beams. The Elindrans ducked behind rocks, thinking the humans would hide too, but the humans did the opposite. They walked directly toward the fire. Beams hit their armor, sending sparks flying. Some humans stumbled, some bled. But they did not fall. They moved faster with every hit, as if each wound filled them with more strength. Their faces hardened into cold determination, their footsteps quickened, their voices rose in a fierce battle cry. The Elindrans watched in awe. It was not rage, it was not madness, it was something deeper. It was the instinct of a species that had battled storms, beasts, and nature itself since the beginning of time. Rylon, the injured soldier, reached the front line first. He spun his blade like a streak of blue light, cutting through the armor of the first raider, who tried to strike him. Rylon did not hesitate. He did not slow. He fought like his pain was fuel instead of weakness. The raiders tried to surround the humans, but the humans broke. Through their formation with impossible force, one human slammed a raider into the ground with a punch that sounded like thunder. Another leaped onto a raider vehicle, ripping wires out with bare hands. The Elindrans could not believe what they were seeing. No species fought like this. Nothing in the galaxy moved like this. The raiders began to panic. They had expected humans to be exhausted. They had expected the Titan to crush their spirit. But instead, the humans seemed stronger, more focused, more dangerous than before. The battle raged on until the ground shook again. But this time, it was not another Titan. It was a human dropship. Returning, the humans inside the ship saw the battlefield chaos, and they launched something new. A burst of gravity pressure slammed the raiders backward, pinning them to the ground. The human commander walked through the battlefield, calmly stepping over broken weapons and smoking armor. He did not look tired. His voice carried across the valley as he said one final line that made every Elindran tremble. This is what happens when you make humans bleed. The raiders tried one last desperate attack, but the humans ended it instantly. Their final strike was precise, swift, unstoppable, and then silence filled the valley. The Elindrans slowly emerged from hiding, their eyes wide, their bodies shaking. They looked at the humans, not with fear this time, but with deep respect. The humans had fought an army after fighting a Titan after arriving. From a death world, without rest, without hesitation, without doubt, Leora stepped forward and whispered, "Humans truly are creatures of legend." The commander placed his blade on his shoulder and replied, "We are not legends, we are survivors, and we protect those who have no one." The smoke from the battlefield had barely faded when a new shadow covered the valley, a shadow so large that it swallowed the sunlight and turned morning into night. The Elindrans looked up with trembling hearts, their voices weak with fear. The raider flagship had arrived. The flagship was a colossal ship floating above the clouds. Its metal surface looked like black stone. Its engines burned blue fire. Its cannons pointed downward, ready to erase everything below. It was a city in the sky, a weapon built to conquer whole planets. The villagers fell to their knees, believing the end had finally come. The humans, however, did not kneel. The human commander stepped forward, staring at the ship with a calm expression. He studied it as if it were nothing more than a large puzzle waiting to be solved. The rest of his squad stood behind him, straight, unwavering, fearless there. Clothes still stained with dust, their armor scratched from earlier battles, but their spirits unbroken. A loud echo rolled across the sky. A message broadcast from the flagship filled the air. Who dares stand against us? The humans did not speak at first. They simply stood in silence, letting the question settle. Letting the Alyndrans wait. Letting the raiders feel the tension build. Then the commander lifted his head and replied with a voice steady like iron, "We are from Earth." The message traveled through the valley, through the mountains, and into the skies. The raiders paused. The Alyndrans gasped. The galaxy had whispered stories of Earth for centuries. Stories of a death world ruled by storms and creatures and countless dangers. Stories of humans who survived the impossible and faced nightmares without fear. The raiders had never believed those stories. Not until now, the flagship fired a massive energy beam toward the valley. The beam glowed white and blue, lighting the clouds as it fell with destructive force. The Alyndrans screamed, thinking their last moments had come, but the humans were already moving. The humans activated a device in the dropship, a hidden weapon deep inside the metal floor. The ground shook as gravity coils lit up, forming a swirling shield above the valley. The colossal raider beam hit the shield and bent upward, shooting straight back into the sky. The beam slammed into the flagship itself, tearing through its lower decks. The explosion blasted fire out of the sides of the ship. The Alyndrans covered their faces as shockwaves rolled across the valley. The raiders screamed orders, scrambling to stabilize their ship. They had never expected their own attack to be turned against them. They had never imagined humans would have technology capable of bending energy. Beams in midair, the humans did not wait. They launched their drones from the dropship. Thousands of tiny machines flew upward, forming a silver storm around the flagship. The drones pierced the hull, creating small entry points for the humans. The raiders responded by releasing swarms of armored fighters. The sky erupted into chaos. Beams streaked across the clouds, ships exploded one after another. Drones spiraled through the air, chasing enemy crafts. The Alyndrans watched the battle with wide eyes, unable to believe that humans were standing against a ship that had destroyed entire worlds. The human commander raised his blade to signal the next phase launch boarding team. 3 human ships shot upward, piercing through enemy fire. They dodged beams with unnatural precision. They moved like arrows, guided by instinct rather than control. The Alyndrans could not understand how humans flew machines with such exactness. It was as if gravity itself obeyed them. The boarding ships reached the Lexri flagship hull. They attached themselves like anchors. Then the humans climbed out and began cutting through the metal wall. Sparks flew as they carved a hole big enough to enter. The raiders rushed inside to stop them, but the humans met them head-on. The battle inside the flagship was silent from the outside, but flashes of blue and red light glowed through the holes in the ship, indicating fierce combat. Humans moved like shadows, cutting through raider armor with swift strikes. They did not slow, even when their bodies were pushed to the limit. They fought like their world had taught them that hesitation meant death. The Alyndrans watched from below, barely breathing. Then they saw something that made their hearts race. A second explosion burst from inside the flagship. A bright white flash that shook the entire ship. The humans had reached the core section. The raider flagship suddenly tilted. Losing balance, pieces of metal fell from its sides. Flames erupted from the engines. The giant ship began sinking lower into the sky. Unable to hold itself up, the Alyndrans held their breath, waiting for the humans to escape. Waiting to see who emerged alive. Then a single transmission echoed from the flagship speakers, a human voice, calm, strong, unshaken. "This battle is over. Earth has arrived." The flagship groaned like a dying beast as it drifted away from the valley, struggling to stay afloat. The Alyndrans looked at the sky with awe and disbelief. Humans had done the unthinkable. They had stood against the greatest warship of the raiders, and they had won. The raider flagship drifted in the sky like a wounded beast, its engines failing, its armor cracked from the inside. The Alyndrans watched with shaking hearts, expecting the ship to fall at any moment. But it stubbornly stayed afloat, trying to regain control. The villagers prayed the humans had escaped, but no one could see them. Through the thick clouds of smoke inside, the flagship alarms echoed through the metal halls. Raiders ran in panic, trying to hold their positions. Their leader, the Raider King, stood in his throne room surrounded by guards. His voice roared through the ship, demanding to know who had dared to invade their mighty vessel. Then the doors opened. The first human stepped inside, silent and calm. His armor was covered in scorch marks, but he walked without fear. His eyes cold like winter snow. The guards attacked instantly, but the human moved like a shadow. Every strike he made was quick, precise, unstoppable. The guards fell one after another, their weapons useless against a warrior shaped by a death world. More humans entered behind him, forming a line, their blades glowing blue. Their steps steady, their presence alone enough to make the Raider King step back. The king raised his staff and shouted for them to stop, to negotiate, to find peace. The human commander stepped forward. His voice, low, steady, unshaken. Earth does not negotiate with cowards who harm innocent people. The Raider King snarled, his claws flashing. You cannot win. You are few. We are many, the commander answered, with a simple truth. We do not need numbers. We need purpose. The king screamed in anger and ordered every raider on the ship to attack. From every corridor, warriors charged forward, their weapons glowing, their bodies larger and stronger than most species. But strength without courage meant nothing against humans. The humans moved like a storm. Their formation shifted fluidly, their blades sliced through raider armor. Their arms lifted enemies as if lifting nothing but air. The Elindrans watching from below could see flashes of blue and red shining through the cracks of the flagship. Each burst of light, a sign of the fierce battle inside. A group of raiders managed to injure one of the humans. The Elindrans gasped, thinking the warrior would fall. But instead, the injured human grinned, wiped the blood from his face, and charged faster than before. The raiders panicked, realizing too late that hurting a human only made them stronger. The commander pressed forward, heading straight for the throne room. Every raider in his way fell quickly. Some tried to flee, some dropped their weapons. Other raiders begged for mercy, but the humans walked past them, focused only on the king who had ordered the attack on Elindra. When the commander reached the throne room, the Raider King stood with 2 elite guards at his side. The king was huge, twice the size of a human, his armor heavy, his muscles thick, his voice a growl. You dare face me? The commander lifted his blade calmly. I dare because someone answered a cry for help, and Earth does not ignore such things. The king roared and charged, swinging his massive weapon. The impact shook the floor, but the commander blocked it with one smooth motion. The king swung again and again, each strike powerful enough to shatter stone, but the commander matched him effortlessly. The Elindrans watching through internal screens could not believe it. A human fighting the strongest warrior of the raiders, and not stepping back even once. The elite guards tried to flank the commander, but the other humans rushed in, blocking them, their movements flawless, their teamwork natural. They fought as if they shared one heartbeat, one instinct, one purpose. The king grew desperate. He activated his armor, releasing a wave of energy that sent the humans sliding back. The Elindrans cried out, thinking the humans might finally fall. But the commander stood up again, his eyes sharper than before, his voice a quiet whisper. You made one mistake. You attacked a world under our protection. The king swung with rage, but the commander dodged dizzily, stepped inside the attack, and struck at the king's armor. A crack appeared, the first crack in the king's legendary armor. Panic filled the raider's eyes. He swung again, but slower. The commander saw the opening and delivered one final strike, hitting the core of the armor. The energy inside the armor burst outward in a bright flash. The king fell onto his knees, struggling to breathe, staring at the human with disbelief. The commander stepped closer and spoke one final line: this war ends today. The king collapsed, defeated his guards, dropped their weapons. Realizing the battle was lost, the ship shuddered violently. The core was failing. Flames shot through the corridors. The humans signaled for extraction. They moved quickly, guiding injured soldiers, helping civilians trapped inside. Even in battle, they showed mercy to those who were innocent. The humans exited the ship through the breach they created earlier. They jumped toward their waiting craft as the flagship finally tilted downward, its engines exploding into a storm of fire. The giant ship fell toward a distant mountain with a thunderous crash. The Elendrans watched with wide, trembling eyes. They could not believe what they had witnessed. Humans had entered the strongest warship of the Raiders. They had fought through thousands. They had faced the king himself, and they had won without fear, without hesitation, without doubt. The human commander stood at the edge of the valley, blade on his shoulder armor, glowing from heat. He looked at the Elendrans and spoke calmly. Earth protects its own, and now Elendra is under our protection too. The Raider flagship lay broken across the distant mountains, smoke rising into the sky. Like a giant dying spirit, the battlefield around Elendra was finally silent. Only the sound of soft wind moved through the valley, carrying the scent of burned metal and cracked earth. The Elendrans stepped out from behind rocks and shelters, slowly, unsure if the danger had truly passed. The humans stood in a line at the center of the valley, their armor still glowing with heat, their faces calm, their bodies covered in dust and dried blood, yet they did not collapse, they did not show weakness. They stood tall, like warriors who had fought 1,000 battles and were ready for 1,000 more. The elder Leora walked forward nervously, her heart still shaking with fear and hope mixed together. She had seen many warriors in her lifetime, but she had never seen a species like humans. She approached the commander, her voice trembling. You saved us when no one else answered. Why? The human commander looked at her, then at the destroyed warships scattered across the ground. His voice quiet but strong, because we know what it feels like to shout for help and hear nothing in return. Humans do not forget that pain, so when someone cries, we come. Leora felt her chest tighten with emotion. For years, Elendra had begged for aid from the rich empires and powerful alliances. None had listened, none had sent ships, none had cared. But Earth, a world no one trusted, a world feared, as a death world, had come without hesitation. The villagers approached the humans, shyly. Many bowed, some cried, others reached out timid hands to touch the strange armor as if touching a legend. Children hid behind their parents, staring with wide eyes at the heroes from the death world. One child, the same little girl the Medica had healed earlier, stepped forward. She held a small glowing flower in her hands, a rare Elendran blessing flower. She offered it to the human medic with a shy smile. The medic knelt, took the flower gently, and placed it on his armor. It glowed softly against the metal. The mother of the child whispered words filled with gratitude. You are not monsters. You are guardians. The commander turned toward the sky, watching the clouds clear. The battle might have ended on Elendra, but he knew the truth. The galaxy had felt the shock. The empires would talk. The Raiders would fear, and rumors would spread faster than any ship Earth had returned. Far across the star system, sensors detected the fall of the Raider, tightened the destruction of their flagship. And the disturbance caused by the humans' arrival messages spread across communication channels. Who defeated the Raiders? Who stopped the Titan? Who destroyed the flagship? The answer formed on every tongue. Humans from Earth. In the royal houses of distant planets, rulers trembled because they remembered the old stories, the stories of humans who survived everything. The stories of Earth that never surrendered, the stories of a people who turned danger into strength and pain into power. The Galactic Council gathered in panic, discussing what humanity's return meant. They had thought Earth was isolated. They had thought humanity was weakened. They had thought Death World meant primitive. But now they saw the truth. Death World meant unstoppable. Back on Elendra, night began to fall. A soft blue glow rose from the hills as the villagers lit lanterns in honor of their rescuers. The humans gathered near their dropship, preparing for departure. They did not stay for celebration. They did not ask for reward. They were simply ready to leave once their mission was complete. Leora approached the commander once more, unsure if she would ever see him again. She bowed her head deeply, her voice filled with gratitude. You did not know us yet. You saved us. What should we tell the galaxy about Earth? The commander paused, then spoke a line that Alindra would remember for generations. "Tell them the cry for help was heard." "Tell them," Earth answered. "Tell them we protect those who stand alone." The humans boarded their dropships one by one, the engines lit with bright fire. The Alindrans stepped back, watching the sky glow red as the ships prepared to rise. The children waved to the elders, bowed the warriors, saluted. The ships lifted into the air, slowly rising above the valley. The wind from their engines sent dust swirling around the villagers. But no one looked away. They wanted to remember this moment forever, the moment the Deathworld warriors became their protectors. As the ships broke through the clouds, a final message echoed across. Alindra speakers carrying the voice of the commander. "Hold on, we are always coming." The villagers repeated those words softly, like a prayer. The phrase that had saved them, the phrase that would become part of their history. "Hold on, we are always coming." The humans disappeared into the sky, leaving only trails of fire. The Alindrans watched until the last trace vanished. Then they looked at the ruined valley, at the broken Titan, at the shattered flagship, at the place where they had almost died, and they knew one truth: the galaxy would never be the same now that Earth had returned.